Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. My name is Jasper Dent. I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers, Saskatoon. For the children who just entered, I would like to invite all children to move to the front if you would like to have a better view of the wonderful pictures in this book. This event is being held on Treaty 6 territory. This is the land of the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota, and of course, homeland of the Métis. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of Wilfred Burton's new book, Kohkum's Royal Bannock, published by Thistledown Press. Joining us as guest host tonight is local author Court Donnier. Thank you both to Wilfred and Court, and also to Jacqueline from Thistledown Press for being here tonight and for all working with us at McNally to make this event happen. So just a couple notes before we begin. This event is being live streamed. There's a web camera up to your right here. It'll just be focused on the stage, not the audience. However, if your phone goes off in the middle of the event, it might pick that up and freeze it on the internet forever. So now would be a great time to mute or turn off your phone. Please and thank you. If you would like to purchase copies of Kohkum's Royal Bannock, or we have a selection of Wilfred Burton's other books here as well, and some more up in the children's department. We've got copies on the signing table up here and also on the desk by where you first walked in. You're welcome to get your book signed before you purchase it. We just ask that you please do remember to stop by the cash desk on your way out in advance. And now, to say a bit about this book and to introduce our author and host, I would like to invite Jacqueline Morgan from Thistledown Press up to the stage to say a few words. Everyone, please give her a very warm welcome.
Thank you. As Jasper said, my name is Jacqueline. I'm Director of Marketing at Thistledown Press. I'm delighted to introduce Wilfred and his conversation partner, Court, for tonight's launch of Kohkum's Royal Bannock by Wilfred Burton and illustrated by Holly Michif. Before I get into the bios, I just wanted to say a quick few thank yous. First off, thank you so much to McNally Robinson and to Jasper for hosting and putting this event together. And to everyone who's here in person and online to support Wilfred in this exciting launch. We'd also like to thank our funders, Sask Arts, Canada Council for the Arts, and the Government of Canada's Canada Book Fund for their publishing program. And I'm also excited to share that this launch is part of our 50th anniversary celebrations this year. And we brought some giveaway items. You can see them displayed on the table there. So you can come check them out after the launch when you're coming to buy a book and get it signed. You can also visit our website to learn more about our 50th anniversary and keep up to date with everything happening this year. And now I'll introduce our guests for this evening. Wilfred's conversation partner and host for this evening is Court Donnier. He is a proud Métis man born and raised in Saskatoon. He is happily married to his wife Angela and proud of his daughter Ashley, son Christopher, daughter-in-law Kaylee, and granddaughter Catherine. He is a graduate of the Indian Teacher Education Program and possesses a Bachelor of Education and postgraduate diploma in Indigenous Studies. Court worked in the education field for 41 years as a classroom teacher and administrator before retiring in 2020. He's an oral storyteller and enjoys sharing stories shared with him by his cousin, Clara Delorme. He's also a published children's author. His two books, Road to the Prairie Ronde and Growing Up Métis, Stories of Resiliency, were published by Gabriel Dumont Institute and both received 2 nominations from the Saskatchewan Book Awards. Author Wilfred Burton, a proud Michif, grew up in the Midnight Lake area of Saskatchewan. He was an elementary teacher, university instructor, and literacy coordinator for over 30 years. He's currently retired and spends his time writing, reading, gardening, beading, rug cooking, and doing lots of volunteer work in the community. He's a published author of several Métis-specific picture books. His love of storytelling, fiddle music, and dance came as gifts from his mother, Georgina Nolin, a gift he loves to share with others through presentations and writing. He lives in Saskatoon. And now I'll turn it over to Wilfred.
Oh, Tanchikio. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is a little overwhelming, looking out and seeing everybody. And I have cataracts as well, so I can't see very well. But I get an operation on 19th of September, so just a few days away. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. This is very overwhelming. And there are people here from all parts of my life. It's quite amazing. And of course, I'm especially grateful. I have several family members here, so I'm very grateful for them for coming and cheering me on, as they always do. And I want to thank my Métis community, including our Xavier, Nora Cummings, who is going to come, but she has a doctor's appointment right now. And our Gabriel Local 11, as well as Gabriel Press for publishing many of my first books. I also want to thank all of the educators who use my books for their classrooms. That's one of the reasons that I write. Michif Métis specific books, and shout out to Faye Maurice, and because she gave me the refrain that's in this book. Bam, 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 wow, wow. And of course, I can't forget my writing group. I have a whole bunch of people in my writing group here. And they just provide really excellent discussion and feedback. And I especially am thankful for Court, who's also in my writing group, that he agreed to be here tonight. So 2 years ago, Liz Phillips, and I think Liz came in, I thought I saw her sneaking. Oh, there she is, way at the back. And we were at the Bannock Festival, and she approached me, and we talked about different manuscripts that I might have. And so I sent 3 over to her, and they chose this one. And it originally was called Scrummy Bannock for the Queen, but a lot of people don't know what scrummy means, so we changed it to Kohkum's Royal Bannock. And they have been just a real pleasure and a dream to work with. They hooked me up with Lisa Bird Wilson and Bev Brenna, both of whom were really great to work with. And we cut out a lot of words. That was their part of their job. And then I went off to Kong, and I have never met Kong, for the layout, and then Holly Bichette to illustrate it, and then to Irma Klein and Larry Fayon to translate it into Michif, and I'm very thankful that it is translated into Michif. So, and then we have Jacqueline that you met earlier in marketing. So she's taken up this last part and has been really promoting the book. So you've seen it plastered over social media in different formats. And then over time, this very beautiful book was created with all of the work that everybody else put into it. This is my first hardcover book. I know this one isn't specifically, but it is published in hardcover. So that's exciting for me to have like a first hardcover. So quite a long time ago, the seed for this particular book came when I was dancing with a group called the Riel Reelers in Regina. And we were a Métis dance troupe, and I danced with them for about 8 years. And we were asked to dance for the Queen, Queen Elizabeth. And so we prepared, and the Queen was visiting in Lumsden, you know, the big metropolis of Lumsden. And it was in the skating arena of all places. And so when we got there, we had to be shuffled into the men's change room. So this is spring, and anybody that's ever played hockey or been in an arena, just the heat, it was a very warm day outside, and we were put into the men's change room, but we couldn't stand it in there because of the smell. So we snuck out and we went into the penalty box, and we hid out in the penalty box, and we got to see the Queen come in her entourage and 300 guests, and they had everything was beautifully done. The tables had white tablecloths, all that beautiful. It was very, very nice, and they fed her sandwiches with no crusts. And I like the crust. That's my favorite part of the bread. And so I jokingly said to whoever was standing there, like, they really should be feeding her bannock, don't you think? Because like she's in Saskatchewan, they should be feeding her bannock. And so that little joke was kind of funny, and we went ha ha ha. But at that moment, because there's a teacher in me, said, this should be a kid's book, right? The feeding bannock to the Queen. So this should be a kid's book. And so that's where 20 years ago, almost exactly 20 years ago, it was in May, I think, or June, that seed started. And so then I percolated on it for a long time, and then I actually started to write it. And And then it sat for a very long time again. As lots of writers will know, you don't get everything published right away. So it sat and I sent it off to a couple of places. And the one place, I won't mention the name of the publisher, but they said they absolutely would never publish this because it has Indigenous people in it and has a queen. And nobody would ever buy a book because of the relationship that Indigenous people have with the monarch. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And so, you know, most of my books, if you know, most of the books that I've written, they're mostly historical fiction and they've taken place a long time ago. But this is contemporary, and I wanted it to be fun. So that's the reason for actually writing this book, is to have a contemporary Indigenous book that's fun. And I hope it's fun, and I hope you enjoy it today. Before I read it, I'm going to just tell you that I dedicated this particular book to all of the Riel Reelers and their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, because every book has to have some, you know, you have to dedicate it to somebody, and I've dedicated it to almost all my family and my other books, so I went on the list. And but that's where this this seed came from, as we were I was dancing with the Riel Reelers. So this is the book, Kohkum's Royal Bannock. I wrote it, Holly Pichette illustrated it, and Irma Klein and Larry Fayant translated it. And I worked with Irma for many years in Regina, so I know her really well. And I love how she translated it, because the translation is how Michif people speak. It's not word for word translation. And I really, really appreciate that kind of translation, because it's more of sort of that colloquial, you know, as you would sit down at the kitchen table, kind of visiting kind of language, as opposed to word for word. So you guys ready? I'm so happy that there are children here. Like, this is a kid's book and we have all these adults. I was scared there would be any kids here. Okay, so here we go. Okay, cataracts are not good tonight. Kohkum! We've got mail, shouted Xavier. There was always excitement when they got mail. If there were flyers, Kohkum sat and pointed out the things on sale. If there was a check, Xavier knew they'd go shopping and he'd get a treat. But this time it was different. It's from the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan, read Xavier. What do they want with this old Michif woman? Asked Kohkum. Xavier tore open the letter. Well, they want you to make your famous bannock and jam for the Queen. She's coming tomorrow. Oh, wah, wah, screeched Kohkum. I have lots of jam. Now, how many bannocks to bake? She muttered. There's the Queen, her driver, the Lieutenant Governor, his assistant, the mayor, and his helper. 6 people. So I'll make one big Red River cartwheel bannock. So off Kohkum and Xavier went to the store in Kohkum's old red Ford. They bought flour, baking powder, and shortening. I'll bake the bannock in the morning so it's fresh, said Kohkum. Let's get a good sleep. So the next morning, Kohkum and Xavier got up before the birds. You know, my boy, I think we forgot to read the rest of the letter. So Xavier turned the letter over. And this is what it said. Take the bannock to City Hall before 3 o'clock. He paused. And there are 300 guests joining the Queen. Wah, wah, screeched Kohkum. Let's get busy. How many bannocks do I make for 300 people? Well, each bannock has to be cut into 10 pieces. 300 people divided by 10 is 30 bannocks. 2 pieces for everyone. That's 600 divided by 10. How many is that? 60 bannocks. But everyone will want to take some home. That's 900 pieces divided by 10. How much is that? 90 bannocks. Wah, wah. How will I ever make 90 bannocks by 1 o'clock? Or again, they scrambled down the aisles, gathering flour, baking powder, and shortening until the groceries almost reached the ceiling. They went through the checkout, then out to the old red Ford. It's not gonna fit, said Xavier. It has to. So they stacked the flour in the back seat and the trunk, the shortening in the passenger seat, and stuffed the baking powder into every nook. Xavier, you'll have to ride on the top. Here's my cell phone, my boy. Call your aunties and tell them to come and help immediately. So off they sped home to make 90 bannocks. And by the time Kohkum and Xavier arrived, all the aunties were there and they burst into action. Kohkum dragged out her biggest bowls, spoons, and baking pans. Everyone pitched in. One auntie measured the flour, another measured the baking powder, a third added the salt, and another the shortening. Then the next auntie mixed while the last auntie poured in water. Don't mix it too much, reminded Kohkum. It will make the bannock hard as a rock. And when the bowl was finally passed to Kohkum, she secret. Do you know what it is? Only one person knows what it is. You might have to read the book to find out. So soon out came the first 3 golden bannocks. Perfect. They have to rest and cool slowly, explained Kohkum. We'll slice them when we get to City Hall. We have 87 more bannocks to make. When all the bannocks were baked, Kohkum clapped her hands. Oh no, Raj! Now let's load up. They're not going to fit, said Xavier. They must, groaned Kohkum. So the auntie stood in line and gingerly passed the delectable bannocks to Kohkum, who carefully placed them in the back seat, the front seat, and the trunk. The bannock couldn't fit inside the car, so she stacked it on the roof. It piled so high it almost reached the sky. Let's go, shouted Kohkum. And they got to City Hall with not a minute to spare. The aunties in line handed each bannock from one to the other carefully. Then they passed the jam. The aunties Xavier and Kohkum cut all the bannocks perfectly. Then they stacked each piece on a tray and scooped all the jam into crystal bowls. Now it's ready for the queen, announced Kohkum. Xavier peeked in to watch the queen and her entourage enter with a lieutenant governor. After everyone sat down, white-gloved waiters poured tea from swan-neck porcelain teapots. Next, heaping trays of bannock and crystal bowls of rhubarb strawberry jam were served. The queen looked at the bannock and said in her musical British accent, I apologize, Angela. What might this be? Kohkum and Xavier and the aunties held their breath. The lieutenant governor replied, well, it's the famous bannock and jam you requested. So the queen prepared a piece for herself and took a bite. Absolutely scrummy. The queen took another piece. Oh, so scrummy, she repeated. Soon all the guests were slathering jam on their bannock and commenting, so scrummy, so scrummy, so scrummy. The queen stood. I'm just gobsmacked. A morsel of deliciousness. Where is the person who made this scrummy bannock and jam? The lieutenant governor escorted Kohkum out. May I present Kohkum? This bannock and jam is so scrummy, I must have the recipes for my cooks. It is the most delectable food I have ever tasted, declared the queen. Kohkum didn't know what to say. The aunties didn't know what to say. But Xavier did. My Kohkum will send you the recipes, Mrs. Queen, said Xavier. Isn't he brilliant? Giggled the queen. Now let's give Kohkum 3 cheers. Hip hip hurrah! And everyone joined in. Hip hip hurrah! Hip hip hurrah! And that's the end of the story.
Okay, so before we even start, this is just so awesome to see everybody here, so I have to take a picture of all of you guys. So we'll save this for Wilfred, so make sure you can be seen. Oh, so many of you. Okay, perfect. All right, everybody ready? Oh yes, well done. Hold up your book. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Well done. Well, that was a brilliant story and certainly hits the nail on the head in terms of being entertaining. So can we give Wilfred one more round of applause? I watched the kids at the front to see if they were smiling, if they were laughing, and they were enjoying the story. And that's the most important part. That's who this story was for. So I have a few questions now for Wilfred. And then once I get through my questions, then we'll open it up to you guys, and then you guys can ask your questions, and I'll bring you the microphone, and then we'll all hear what that question is, and then Wilfred can answer it for us. So
Make them easy.
I actually told him ahead of time, so they're pretty easy. So Wilfred and I had a conversation this afternoon. And so the first two questions come out of that conversation that we were having. And Wilfred's already alluded to both of them. So the first question I have was, there was some controversy, and we always want a controversy. They make it fun. What was the controversy about this story, including reference to the Queen and how Indigenous readers would respond to it? Can you clarify your perspective on this issue?
So that's a really difficult question and a little bit temperamental, or what's the word I'm trying to think of? Controversial. Because a lot of Indigenous people do not have a good relationship with the Crown or with the government of Canada. And so I think that question came from a publisher, and it also came from another person. And so I am of Michif and English descent. My mother is a Michif and my father is English, and his parents are from Britain. So for me, it's both of my cultures in this one book. The whole idea of that a lot of Indigenous people still have quite a good relationship with the Crown. They have a lot more issues with the government of Canada, around the Indian Act and whatnot. But a lot of First Nations people still respect that agreement that they have made many, many years ago when they formed the treaties and they shook hands, and they still want that honored. And so for me, the Queen, it isn't controversial for me at all, but for some people, they may find it problematic, but hopefully not.
Good. So that's great. Okay, so here's our second question. The second thing that we talked about was the shift in writing from historical fiction to contemporary entertainment. And what motivated this shift? And is it an avenue that you plan to continue with in the future?
I think you could almost answer that question because you read quite a few of my stories in the writing group. But yeah, so I do a lot of historical fiction. Most of my stuff that was published by Gabriel Money Institute is historical fiction. I did stories, the Fiddle Dancer series, and it's kind of centered around Batoche and back to Batoche. And then, of course, Rodelance Kitten, which is centered around Métis people living on road allowances and whatnot. So, and of course, we have the Giant book, which is, historical too, because he was born in 1882. And I have a Rougarou story, which is kind of, also an old story from the olden days. So a lot of the stories that I have written definitely have that historical feel. But I have, because I was a teacher for a million years, and I loved having books in my classroom, and I loved reading to the kids, and I loved keeping up with children's literature. I enjoy a book that entertains and makes you giggle and makes you laugh and whatnot. And I think I have, I think I can be funny once in a while. So
Well, from the laughter that we heard earlier, I'd say so.
yeah, so this was, I also believe wholeheartedly that we just aren't historical people. We didn't just live in the past. So we as Michif and Métis people, we're still here. It's 2025, we're still here, we're resilient, and I think we should have more contemporary stories. And so that's why there's a cell phone in the story and whatnot. People still make Bannock, that's not historical, it's contemporary. And some people still drive old Ford cars. And we still shop at, supermarkets like Safeway and Save on Foods and whatnot. So yeah, so it kind of wanted a contemporary feel as well as being a little bit funny.
And do you think you'll continue down that road?
So I have other stories kind of in the pipeline that some are contemporary, but more that feeling, like they have bring out emotion. And then I do have a couple that are kind of funny.
Okay.
Yeah. It just depends who will publish them, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, perfect. All right, here's my third question. So Wilfred is a prolific author. He has tons of books which are here and available for you to look at, but he's also an inspiration. And I know he's a very modest person, probably doesn't appreciate me saying this, but he is, and he's an inspiration. And I know that because he's a mentor to myself. When I was writing my book, my very first book, I had no idea what I was doing. And I mentioned it to Wilfred, and Wilfred said, well, whatever you do, if you're writing a children's book, make sure that one of the central figures is a kid. And you would think that would just be logical, but I hadn't gone there at all. And so I had to go back and rewrite the whole thing and change the shift of the story to make sure that it was about a kid. So his influence is not only important to myself, but to many other writers. So having said that, and talking about your legacy that I think that you need to be very proud of, when you first started publishing stories, what was your goal? And has that goal changed now?
Well, first, thanks, Court. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a long time ago, several books ago, right? How has it changed over time? So when I first began teaching, or even when I was a student in school, I never saw myself in any literature ever. And then when I first started teaching, I started teaching in 1979, which is before most of you were born. And so there are a few people giggling. So there wasn't a whole lot of published stories, especially around the Métis and the Michif experience. And so I always had this idea. I was a firm believer in language experience, or all the teachers out there know about language experience, is when you take the stories from your students and you create reading material out of that. And so I've always done that with my students, always done a lot of language experience. And I first started teaching in La Loche, Saskatchewan. And in La Loche at the time, very few children spoke English. And I am thankful for that experience because I could not use the textbooks that were ordered and required, for us to teach. And so I had to go to that language experience, and we wrote stories about, when the janitor took us out and we snared a rabbit, and then he came in and he skinned it just in one full swoop, like, there's the bunny, soft. And then they cooked it, like it was quite experiential. And of course we wrote stories for that, and then the kids loved those stories. And then of course the kids would go and they go fishing on the weekend, or they go and at the time there was a little creek, and if fish were running in the creek, they'd go down there with pitchforks and catch fish. And so they always had these stories, so we'd create those stories and make them into little reading books. And they were the most popular books in my classroom, always. So I did that for many, many years because I taught mostly younger children. And so I've always been creating stories. I have to go way, way back. When I was in grade 4, I wrote a story, and I had to go to Medstead to the oratory contest. And I went up on the stage and I froze, and all these eyes that are looking at me now, well, they were all looking at me at this thing, and I couldn't do the story. But I had memorized it, and my mom had helped me put them on little index cards. So in case I forgot, but I had memorized the whole story, and I can even tell you part of it to this day. So, which is kind of interesting, but I didn't get to share that story because I was so like, I was a bush baby. I couldn't read it in front of people. And so I've always had that sort of story in me. And I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, so I've always had that kind of story in me. And so even today, I still have that same goal of writing stories to fill that gap that's out there. Because there's still a huge gap in Métis Michif literature. You know, we have people like Court, and we have people like Leah Dorian, and we have, you know, a few other Métis writers. Angie and her dad wrote a story, and like there's a few people around that have contributed to that you know, body of work, but there still isn't a lot out there, and especially in so the YA novel ranges, how like you filled a little bit of the gap, but there's still so many more stories to share, and so it's all about filling the gap.
Perfect, perfect. So that kind of leads us to this next story, because everybody has a story inside them. So when we talk about experiential writing, that idea of writing about what you know needs to be out there, and particularly for us as Métis people, we want those stories to be out there, regardless of whether they're historical fiction or, you know, contemporary entertainment. It doesn't really matter. We just need to get those stories out here. So my next question, as we think about the people in the room, let's say, everybody has a story. So as we think about emerging writers out there who want to write their own stories and share them with the public, do you have any advice for them?
Well, first of all, I want people to start thinking about questions. But Court warned you earlier, and I don't want the audience to just sit and be quiet. That's so scary to me. It's so much more interesting when it's interactive. So that's just a, you know, your 2-minute warning, because prepare a question.
Yeah.
So yes, you need to write. Just write. Sit down and just write. And if you don't want to share it with anybody, that's fine, but just write. And then the next step is take that step and start sharing it with people, because that's the scary part, right? The scary part is sharing it with others. And then once you share, and then find other like-minded people where you can start critiquing the work. And that's scary as well. Yeah. But Court's really good at it now.
Yeah, way better.
and whatnot. So it's so helpful for us to have that sort of critique and a different lens to look through, and people asking questions about it, so that you can make it better and make the story more entertaining, flow better, you know, be more organized, or whatever it is that you're looking at. So my biggest advice is just write. And if it never goes anywhere, that's fine. Not everybody has a novel in them. Not everybody has a children's book in them, but writing can be quite therapeutic as well. So just write, and then at some point, if you feel like you want to share them, then share them with others. Yeah, just write.
Perfect, perfect. I think just adding to that too is, if you know your audience, who you're writing for, whether it's for yourself or for your family or for the general public, that changes the purpose of the story. So know your audience. Okay, my last question. This is Angela's question. She wants to know, and I've written it down here, inquiring minds want to know. If anybody remembers the National Enquirer. Any further projects that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so there's lots of projects. So I have a book coming out very shortly from Gabriel Institute, and it's the 3rd in the series, the Rodelance series. So this one's called Rodelance Kitten Full Circle. So stay tuned. Hopefully it's soon. I hear a nod. I hear a nod. Or I see a nod, I don't hear a nod. Yeah, so that one's coming out hopefully soon. So that's really exciting because it's a third in a series. And so, you know, Rhodolon's Kitten had 3 and now this one will have 3. So for me, that's really exciting. And this particular story is taking a whole different twist. So they're still they've returned from the north and they've gone back south. We found that out in the last book. And now they're in Regina, and so some very unfortunate things unfold. And one of the children, something happens to one of the children, and so you need to actually read the story to find out what happens to that child. So I won't tell you any more than that. I have a little novel, a YA novel coming out. It's called If This Buffalo Coat Could Talk. It's being published by Cumberland Press, used to be called Red Deer Press. And so that one's coming out sometime. They were, Red Deer Press was just purchased by Cumberland, and so I'm not quite sure. Communication hasn't been that great, but the book is ready, like it's already been laid out. It's, you know, I've seen the cover and all that sort of stuff. So like it's ready. I think hopefully it's being printed. Hopefully. So those are those 2 projects, and a third project is with Heritage House. Heritage House is out of British Columbia, and so they've taken a story that I wrote a long time ago when I worked with Marilyn at Suntep Regina, and one of our students learned to play the fiddle for her grandpa, and his name was Hambone. That's my great name. and she revealed that this ability after many years of him asking her about it, and then her saying, well, I haven't learned how to play the fiddle. And then he just gave up on her, right? He just, well, I guess she's never going to learn to play the fiddle. And then she surprised him. So it's a story that I have had written for a very long time, and I'm glad that they've picked it up. And then there's some others. Pegasus has picked up a book. Pegasus is out of London, England, I think, or somewhere in England. And so they've taken the story that I've written about buffalo bone hunters. So, and I think you know that story.
Yeah.
And so hopefully somewhere in this near future, it gets published. Right now we're at the illustration stage and it's being done electronically. And I think it's with IA maybe, I'm not quite sure, but because they're in London, England, they have no clue what a Red River card is. They have no clue what a buffalo is. They have no clue about any of those things. So when I got the picture or the illustrations, just, you know, the initial ones, the buffalo is a water buffalo. The Red River card is some other kind of card. Yeah, so there's lots of work that needs to be done on that. But I really like that story because after the resistance in 1885 and people were dispersed all over the countryside, and people were really you know, needing work and whatnot, and so they a lot of people went and picked buffalo bones and sold them. And so this is a story that takes place here just south of Saskatoon, and they sell the bones in Dundurn. So it's historical fiction as well. Yeah, so there's quite a few in the works. I have tons of other stories, but nobody's picked them up yet.
Awesome. All right, we still have time. So any questions from the audience? Please, you have a question.
How many books did you write?
Oh, people ask me that all of the time. I don't really know. And I really should keep this number in my head. But if you count the 27 little books that Angie and I wrote together, the Tanshe books, and the books that I've written and co-written with different people, I think it's close to 40 maybe. I can't tell you the exact number, sorry. But it's somewhere around there.
That's a great question. I actually thought about that this afternoon and was going to look it up and then got distracted. All right, any other questions?
Chair, who do you know who makes the best bannock?
Oh my goodness, you're putting me on the spot, Lila. Hmm. Maybe it's somebody in this room. I think it might be you.
Lila Phillips back there, celebrity bannock maker.
I'm not falling for that trick, Lila.
Okay, swiftly moving on. Any other questions?
What was the secret ingredient?
What was the secret ingredient?
Well, it's secret.
It's low sugar.
Oh, some people think it's love. Some people think it's sugar. It's probably a combination of both of them.
Well done. Well done. Anybody else? Another question? It's going to be a comment?
Yeah, I love the fact that there was a recipe for bannock in the book as well, with the secret ingredient.
That's right. So if you buy the book and look at the recipe, then you'll know for sure what the secret ingredient was.
What's your favorite book that you wrote?
That's another tricky question. You know what, my most favorite book is always the one that I'm writing right now. So right now I'm working on an adult novel. And so that's my favorite book right now because I'm so involved in the characters and the plot and everything. So, and so that's my favorite book right now. But you know, I think out of all the books I've written, I always go back to Rougarou Mickey. And I don't know why. I really like Rougarou Mickey. And so it's a quick, nice, fast little book, and it's also kind of tricky. So, but I don't. Usually, it's a book that I'm writing right now.
Anybody else?
Of all your children's books, you must have had a lot of reaction from children. So maybe you could share some of those, or what comes to mind.
I'm kind of a little bit of a storyteller too. So one of the reactions of books that I've written was when I first published with Ann Patton the Fiddle Dancer series. And I was at a school in Regina, and I wish I could remember the name of it. It was in the east part of Regina. And I had done a whole storytelling thing with kindergarten, grade 1, 2, and 3. And there was probably about 400 kids in the library. It was one of those schools where the library's in the middle. And when I was finished, it was recess time. And so all the kids got up and went to their classrooms, it was winter time, got their coats on and everything. And I'm packing up and I'm getting ready. And just as they're all going outside for recess, I see this streams of kids going down the hallway with their scarf tied around their waist, jigging. It was the most amazing thing you've ever seen. Because in Fiddle Dancer, Nolin dances, right? And he jigs, and of course, in the workshop that I was doing, the kids were doing a little bit of jigging. And so, but it was just so amazing to see this hall. It was a very large school, and all these kids with and then as they were going by, these little kids are going, I'm Métis too, I'm Métis too. I don't think they were, some of them were like Indian and, you know, maybe from China or someplace. Like, and they're going, I'm Métis too, I'm Métis too. And so it was it was one of those experiences that I remember that was fun. Yeah.
And there's the power of a great story. All right, anybody else? Oh.
So I just want to say, I'm not a teacher, but I do work in the classroom. And I'm just so grateful for your books. And you talk about filling a gap. We take your books and we've done plays in schools with your books. I'm really looking forward to this one. We'll have fun with that one. But there's elements of reality in all of those books that, whether you want to call them historical, but items we can all relate to. And that's, I'm just so grateful, Wilfred, and to all our Michif authors. I'm just so grateful that you are filling that gap. And I just look forward to your adult novel. Is there anything steamy in it?
I can tell you, when I first started writing it, I told a couple people about the first few chapters, and they said, no, that is too dark. That is so dark. Yeah, ugh, like I don't know. And then I read it to Angie, and now she hates the character.
Daniel is an awful man.
And then I read it to my niece and great nieces, and they actually kind of want to know what's going to happen next, right? And so that spurred me on into to writing more and whatnot. But Faye, thank you so much for that. It is so exciting to see the books being used in the classroom for various reasons. And I was invited to come to École College Park. Is that right? École College Park? Where they did the play?
Greystone.
Oh, Greystone, sorry. It was the wrong school. I didn't teach in Saskatoon, so I mix up all the schools. So Greystone actually took the play, and I was witness to the teacher and the students directed every part of that play. They were in charge, and they had the support from Lila and Faye and the teacher and me and other people, but they directed the play. And they learned, the two characters, Madeline and Rosie, learned to speak Michif. They learned the lines in Michif, and it was unbelievable. And it was like, I went to the afternoon performance, and I was emotional over the whole thing, because if you remember in Rodelow's Kitten, the homes on the Rodelowns are burned at the end, and they had it projected on the back wall and whatnot. It was just so powerful, right? Like, and the kids danced, they played music, they memorized the lines, like they made it into this play with hard work from, people like Faye and Lila, and the classroom teacher. So yeah, that was a very memorable occasion. And then somebody in Regina who teaches grad studies uses my fiddle dancer books in their classroom. I was going, why is somebody in grad school using them? But they use them to show different ways of learning and different ways of teaching and stuff. And I thought, well, that's kind of clever. I never thought about that when I wrote the books. But yeah, so people just use them in lots of different ways. And yeah, I'm always excited to hear about how they're being used.
Very inspirational. Okay, anybody else? This has been great.
I would like to just say that I am very proud to call you my uncle.
Thanks, Nat.
Going once. Nobody else? Okay, well then let's give Wilfred a round of applause.
And once again, thank you everybody for coming. This is it is quite an honor to present the book to all of you. So thanks for the support and thanks for coming tonight. Safe travels home.
Exactly. So Wilfred's going to come up to the table here and he's going to sign books. And so just remember what Jasper said. If you want to get them signed, that's all well and good, but don't leave without paying for them. Okay, thank you.